Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with your stars, Cirroc Lofton and Aron Eisenberg.
Bum, 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 bum.
That's right.
Boom.
Rocking out.
Boom.
So we got a lot of big news. We've got a brand new Star Trek Picard teaser trailer, which was amazing, and we cover the whole thing in a separate video. So please check that out on YouTube. Just look it up. Look us up on the Seventh Rule with a 7 and watch our breakdown. It's like 45 minutes of Cirroc saying how great it is. And Aron being naughty.
How can we talk so long about a 30-second teaser I will never understand?
Because you have so many naughty jokes.
I didn't have any naughty jokes.
Well, we had a lot of critique. You know, I got to bring the critique in there. This is
45 minutes of critiquing for us.
30 seconds.
30-second teaser.
But overall, we love it, and we're extremely excited. And we'll have Patrick Stewart on our show next week.
Oh, easy. Unless you made a phone call in between the two shows.
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe.
Probably not. No.
I sent an invite out to him on Twitter. We'll see if he responds.
Perfect. So before we get too deep into this episode, oh, by the way, we are going to be reviewing A Man Alone. That is episode 4 of Deep Space Nine. Fantastic, amazing, awesome, A Man Alone. So please wait till the end and tell us what you thought of A Man Alone, either from memory or rewatch it and then come back and join the discussion. Before we get into that, Cirroc, I believe, has a shout out to give to Trinity Comics. I could be wrong.
Oh, yeah. Let's give a shout out to our sponsor. No. Shout out to Trinity Comics Convention Services. They attend over 30 comic conventions a year and have the biggest private signings with some of the biggest celebrities and comic creators in the world. They offer COAs and certification through CGC and CBCS. Now make sure to visit them online at www.trinity-comics.com.
Beautiful. And we've got Chateau Picard right here, winery.
Chateau.
Also our sponsor, maybe someday.
I wonder if Trinity Comics can get an autograph of Gene Simmons.
Yeah, he likes the Reds. He likes.
Oh, by the way, we are noticing a great new location for Cirroc.
I'm sure they could.
And Aron noticed something about where he is at Quark's Bar, right?
Quark's Bar. That's Quark's distant cousin, Quark.
It's very funny, trust us.
It's very. It's hysterical. Actually, I actually thought about, is that why he was called Quark? Like Quark. Because he's a bartender.
You've got the wine at that Quark. Yes, and Ryan was also mentioning that a quark is a nanoparticle, obviously one of the pieces that makes up an atom, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Brought to us by, if I'm not mistaken, either Carl Sagan or Stephen Hawking. One of those two kind of brought that into the forefront.
They were smart guys.
Yeah. Much smarter than I.
So let's talk about A Man Alone.
I don't know if that's possible.
Episode 4 of Deep Space Nine, and
I feel like we're in a temporal anomaly right now, Ryan. Are we in a temporal anomaly?
Seems like
there's a little bit of. Am I stuttering audio wise? Like, am I coming through clear?
No.
No.
No, you sound just fine.
You're coming through clear to me.
Yeah. You're frozen to me right now, Cirroc. That's why I'm asking.
How about me? Am I all right?
Well, to me, you're frozen. Ryan freezes off and on. So I don't know if it's on my end. That's why I'm asking.
Oh, I'm frozen to you?
Yes.
Yep. Why don't you just call back? See if that works. Just hang up and call right back.
I can't tell.
If that works.
But I can hear you.
It is on your end.
You've just frozen.
Me?
Yeah. Yeah. Have I frozen at all?
Nope.
No? Okay. Okay, good.
So while we get that figured out, let's talk about A Man Alone. Cirroc, you can just hang up and call right back, and maybe that'll work.
No, you're clear. You're clear.
Okay.
Who's clear?
Okay,
I'm clear?
I'll do it.
I think he's at a Gene Simmons Kiss concert right now.
He said, okay, he'll do it. So anyway, so we rewatched A Man Alone, and Aron Eisenberg, while Cirroc calls back. Tell us what you thought.
First of all, I'm confused. Shouldn't it be a changeling alone? I'm just saying. I liked it. I liked it.
Cirroc.
Oh, Cirroc is back.
Okay.
He's
I'm
at
back.
Quarks. He's hanging out at Quarks. I liked it. I thought it was a good episode, a fun episode. And actually, upon the second viewing, I had watched it once last year, and I saw more social commentary than I had seen the year prior. And again, I think what we've noticed in this DS9 rewatch is each episode so far is giving more, character development to individual characters. In this one, obviously, it's Mr. Odo. I love when he says Mr. Odo.
Mr. Odo.
Yeah, Mr. Odo. Right now, I just heard the guy from The Matrix, Mr. Odo.
Mr. Anderson.
But I did like the episode. I enjoyed it, and I liked. There were a lot of things I did enjoy about it. There was something I found kind of interesting about the show. So, because Keiko starts a school, right? And Jake and I become friends. She is actually instrumental by her starting that school of saving the Alpha Quadrant.
Can I just make a quick announcement? Speaking of which, I wanted to jump in and say this. This is the monumental moment where Jake and Nog met. This is it. A Man Alone, episode 4. Jake and Nog meet. Nog is licking like a ratsicle. And
glop on a stick, this script said.
A what on a stick?
Glop. It said glop.
Glop on a stick.
Yeah.
And also, we get a Molly sighting. I was so excited. We got a Molly sighting.
We did. Yes, we did.
Pretty badass.
But one of the things I noticed about this is that Keiko really is instrumental to saving the Alpha Quadrant and putting the wheels in motion. And the other thing I noticed is because she sets up the science experiment that Cirroc and I, Jake and Nog, go to the Gamma Quadrant for, and that starts the progression of the Dominion basically telling or not wanting anybody from the Alpha Quadrant coming to the Gamma Quadrant. And then I thought, how funny that then Cirroc and I go to the Voyager craft service table, and the next day they tell all the DS9 people, you're not welcome on the Voyager set. So I put that together and I realized that basically Voyager and the whole crew, they are the Gamma Quadrant, and DS9 is the Alpha Quadrant. And that little street between us was the wormhole.
I thought you were going to say that Keiko is the real hero of Deep Space Nine.
I started with that because she started the school. And the other thing I noticed that how often, and this is a political statement, do we not put money into education? We constantly seem to remove it and put it more into military. And yet this show demonstrated Sisko automatically being the father going, go ahead. What do you need? I'll give you everything you need to start your school. Because she started that school, and because Jake is such a wonderful human being who teaches Nog how to read, that trajectory of Nog moves into a much bigger paradigm, and the rock that's thrown into the water and the ripples that happen because of that one action have major consequences 4, 5, 6 years, 6 years later. In a larger scale. And I kind of joking aside with the Voyager thing, I thought that was really funny.
No, I thought that's pretty interesting that you see that parallel.
Yeah.
It's really, it's fascinating. I haven't heard anybody mention that. It's the first I've heard of that theory and that kind of a concept.
Yeah. And I and this is only the fourth episode. Right. So, and the other thing I thought of, and then I'll stop because I know I talk too much, but because I was
Aaron, no. Okay. Sorry.
Because I was a recurring guest star, I only got scripts for the episodes I was in. So I never saw what happened after I did an episode and then all the story that continued because I wasn't continually giving scripts. So then I'd get another episode and I go, oh, well, here I am. And what am I doing? It's kind of like I'd read a whole book, but I'd constantly be missing chapters. So because I haven't watched DS9, a lot of those chapters are going to be filled in for me. So I find that kind of fascinating because we're asked to play a role and we're asked to tell a story, yet I don't always know everything that's going on or what got us here and then what happens after we go from here to there, and what really happened in the Dominion War and everything that it entails. So it's an interesting journey for me going through this, even though I was in this episode, but it's a really fun journey.
Yeah, I agree. There's a certain element of having the advantage of hindsight and having the experiences that we've had afterwards to kind of look back at it with a different sense of the people, the actors who played the different characters, and overall where it's going to end up at the end. So it's kind of interesting to look at it unfold in this different lens. I'm getting a lot of enjoyment out of it. I'm seeing a lot of the freshness of the characters, which is awesome too. Dax's character and Bashir stand out to me as far as like a little bit of the freshness to them. I think they kind of mature over the course of the show, and you kind of see the maturation of each one of them. But I see Bashir really trying to. He's almost like going through puberty on the show.
Yeah,
he is. Yeah,
right. And it's kind of funny to see him kind of, stumble his way and try to find, where he fits in everything. He's looking like trying to really establish himself. I thought that was interesting. And also with Dax's character, I felt like she's trying to find her way and really find a way to blend in and fit in with everybody. There's a certain little level of distance between characters at this point, which I think is interesting, and it's good to watch the beginning of the budding development of characters. I think that's really fun to watch.
What I want to know is when Sisko tells you, I don't want you hanging out with that kid, which was Nog. And then he says, there's 12 other kids on this station. What happened to those 12 other kids? And I was thinking to myself, really? Out of 13 kids on the station, so that would be 14 with you, right?
Right.
You're like, but he's the best guy to hang out with. It's like we need extra scenes where you go to meet the other 12 kids and they're all just, God, this kid's annoying, or this kid's a punk, that kid's really mean. But then you go, hey, okay, I guess I got one more try with this guy. And then you go, hey, I'm Jake, and I'm still, yeah, what do you want, human? Like, man, nobody is nice on this station. And you go, I'm not going to give up on this little guy. He's orange, he's kind of cute, he's got feral teeth, but darn it, there is something about him. I bet you he's going to go to Starfleet someday. I'm going to make him my friend.
One of the things I thought was interesting was the way Ram was kind of bullying you when he walked you into the classroom.
Abusive. Let's be clear. Abusive.
It was literally parental abuse.
It was. I had a bruise after that day.
And there's a look that Sisko gives him where he's like, are you serious? Like, are you going to do this in front of me? Like, you can't do this. And then he looks over at me and says, okay, good luck. I'll see you later.
Yeah. And what was great is he's all, I don't want you hanging out with that human, and he didn't say human at that time. And yet I said human in when I met you, and I was, and I don't think in the script it says HEWMON or HOOMON. And the other thing that was fascinating about Max is he was more Ferengi then, right? In his
right,
and,
totally.
And he's all little lady. I'm like, he's such a jerk. And but there's a transition where he changes to the Rom that we know and love.
Right.
He even changed his voice.
Yes, he did.
Well, he becomes really a layered character.
Yes.
And you see his emotions as the show goes on. You see him vulnerable. He has a real tough exterior in the beginning of the show, and he looks like the guy, like a no nonsense, don't play with me type of Ferengi that is more of the stereotype.
A typical Ferengi.
Right, and he starts off that way, really abrasive, really short, and he does a great job of being that kind of typical Ferengi. But this is obviously before they open up his storyline and really give us more about who he is and what he's, what he represents, what his experiences are like.
Right.
So I think I think it's good to see just kind of the beginning, like I said, it's like these budding relationships starting to just blossom, and we're seeing the beginning of it. But it also makes it a little bit slow, so I'm trying to look at it from both ways. Like, we have the advantage of having watched it, knowing where it's going to go, building the relationships with the other actors. But I'm trying to see what the audience was seeing when they first saw it, and what made them so repulsed by it, or not.
They were repulsed by this episode?
Not this
repulsed
episode.
Is a strong word.
Not really repulsed, but let's say it wasn't so. We weren't still so highly favorable, and we were still cast in this negative light, where that show is not really Star Trek, and we don't like that show. So I feel like looking at it, I'm trying to look at it from that perspective. Like, well, what is it? What would I be expecting to get out of Star Trek watching this show, and what do I feel like I'm not getting?
Right.
So that's where I look at pace, and I feel like when you do good story character development, the pace slows down, because you obviously have to have conversations and expose background on where people are, and there's a lot of dialogue involved with that. Less action oriented, less quick motion, one scene to the next. It becomes a very cerebral type of show, and I feel like maybe that was one of the things that was that we suffered the criticism of.
Well, I guess then let's ask Ryan, when you watched it the first time, what did you feel?
To be honest, I don't remember the first time I saw it many years back. That's why I'm so much enjoying rewatching these. They're actually better than I remember them being. So I'm really enjoying this. Like, I didn't find it slow at all, but it's probably because I've seen the whole series, and I love, the whole thing and all the arcs, and I love the writing. So going back to this is like, I already know the characters. So I don't find it like lacking in character development personally, because I've already seen their 7-year arc. You know what I mean? So I'm seeing it with kind of like the grandparent syndrome. Like, grandparents get all the good stuff of grandkids without having to deal with the shit the parents have to deal with. So I'm getting to just enjoy it because I already like all the characters. I already like the show. But I found a lot of really enjoyable things. Like, I thought the school scene was beautiful. I thought that was so cool, especially if you notice the very end of the episode, it trails off with her saying, now everybody, look in your computers under Bejor so we can learn more about this planet where we're living. And I'm like, that's totally what a teacher would do. It's like, let's just start, where are we? What are we doing? And then she would start doing like different levels for the different ages and races and stuff. And I thought that was fantastic. I wasn't bored at all. Now, if I'd never seen Deep Space Nine, maybe I would be. And in today's age of Twitter and Facebook, people would probably be like, they're not doing anything. They're just sitting there talking, But I loved it. And I also thought it was really cool to see the first part where Nog and Jake are finally meeting, and like how that happened. Because I couldn't quite remember. I remember it had the rat sickle, but
Glop on a stick.
The what stick?
Glop on a stick. Glop. And that was the scene that I auditioned with, meeting Jake. But if you listen to it, there's an audio issue at my first 2 lines, so that part of the scene, and then the second half of the scene. And I'm pretty sure they used the ADR looping when I went back in after we shot it to redo the audio.
I did notice a difference in sound, but I couldn't tell what I was hearing that was different.
Yeah, I didn't like it because I sounded higher pitched than I think I wanted to be, and as I eventually get to, but I also realized that both I grow in the character as well as Max grows in the character, as well as Armin also grows in the character. We all kind of find our footing as time goes on. And now I'm going to throw this at Cirroc here. When we talked about Discovery, one of the things you critiqued Discovery for was the things that DS9 didn't have, which were like the kind of the philosophical questions, the moral, ethical stuff, right? Well, this show had that, and actually watching it the second time, I noticed even more so oh shoot, I just lost this, and these were my notes on my phone. Oh good, here it is.
Uh-oh.
I even noticed it a little bit more so, one in the sense of wanting to accuse and somebody's guilty by rumor, by fear, by finger pointing and suspicion and rebel rousing. The other thing is they also made very clear what I thought, well, I guess it wasn't clear because I didn't see it the first time, with the line with, let's see, where is it? Little Aron, my son. This is something about, can this rope fit around a changeling's neck? And I was like, wow, boom. And that was, I thought that was really, really strong connection to, you know, a very dark past of our own, and bringing it in there, and a very powerful imagery in one line, and then connecting to, and then Sisko saying, how did he phrase it? I think I wrote this down. He says, how do you get a rope around a shapeshifter? That's what he said. And then Sisko says, do not condemn this man because he's different than you are. Take the evidence to a court of law. That's where you go. And he was sticking up for Odo. And I thought that was really powerful. And then especially where the episode eventually goes. And then also when he makes the comment, we can't have our prime suspect in charge of the investigation, which is pretty poignant to what seems or appears to be happening in today's politics. So I was like, wow, really hitting it right out of the park on the fourth episode, you know, especially where we go to later with Far Beyond the Stars and other things. So I was wondering if you guys picked up on that or if you noticed that.
That was my biggest takeaway from the episode, actually, Aaron. I'm glad you brought it up. I think the scene between Odo and Sisko, where Odo is adamant that, you know, this man is guilty and that he's going to exact the proper revenge, and take justice into his own hands.
Yes.
And to me, that also revealed a lot about how Sisko perceives. He was quick to shut that down.
Yep.
And he told Odo, he said, if you can't handle yourself, then I'll find a security officer who will.
Right. And he said it firmly and with strength.
Right. And he was really giving an ultimatum to him, basically saying, you don't have the power of the law in your hand. You don't get to make the rules and make the law. And I felt like he was treating this person who Odo clearly thought was guilty and was a prisoner that was released under false pretense. But Sisko wanted to afford him the level of equality and fairness. He's not guilty of anything. It's nothing it's outside of our hands. If they released him legally, then the temporary government, the provisional government released him. Then that's the law, and we can't oppose that. We can't take a moral high ground.
Right.
The law is the law, and that's what it is. And I felt like he was protecting even the bad people with his morality, which is great because that's really the kind of morality that you want to have. Somebody that's even-handed and that doesn't treat one person, even if they are guilty, unfairly, and doesn't give them the same kind of chances, which actually I thought was brilliantly written because it ended up becoming the same thing that Odo now was being a victim of.
Right.
Which is basically now justice was in the hands of the Bajorans who wanted Odo to suffer the consequences of their feeling of how justice should play out.
Right.
And I felt like they played that really well in that episode. And that just speaks once again to the quality of the writing in our show, that they really tackled these very specific morality issues, these very specific topics that are controversial, and they took on the differences between justice and rule of law, and they took on the differences between terrorist and freedom fighter.
All right, we got to go to a break. Sorry to cut you off there. We're going to be right back with the seventh rule. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the seventh rule with your stars, Aron Eisenberg and Cirroc Lofton. My name is Ryan T. Husk. I jumped in on Cirroc. I do want to point out that to jump on what you were saying when Sisko was talking to Odo and said, look, you have a choice. You know, you can do the job or I'll find someone who will. Something I noticed was, I don't know if it was an actor's choice or a director giving him direction, but I thought it was cool that when Sisko delivered that line, every line preceding that was said very softly and friendly. Like it wasn't a battle throughout the scene. It wasn't like fight, escalate. It was like soft. Like he gave Odo 2 or 3 chances and Odo still wasn't getting it. And finally was like, okay, now I got to just give you an ultimatum and say, look, I was trying to be nice, but you either do it or you.
What she did with Kira in the episode before, when Kira was coming in and saying, "Oh, I suppose you want my office and this and that."
Yeah.
And he was very calm, and he didn't really come combatively. He was just like, "Well, yeah, I do," And then he gets firm when he needs to,
Mm-hmm.
and he's always like measured when.
So I also want to address this in the previous segment when you were talking about what Sisko was saying to the mob when they were coming after Odo. And I do think that was the biggest takeaway. And man, in just 42 minutes, they give us like 5 or 6 really good takeaways. But for me, it reminded me very much of To Kill a Mockingbird. I don't know if you guys have read the book or watched the movie. The movie stars our friend and your grandfather on TV, Mr. Brock Peters. So that was his legendary role as far as I know. I'm sure he's done a bunch of other things, but that's where I first found out about him way back in the day. To Kill a Mockingbird, and it had very strong parallels to that, especially with the court of law and with all of that stuff and the news. And it also reminded me of what's going on today with the mob mentality of like the fake news and the mob mentality, and everybody's believing one person says something and they're angry and they're looking for an excuse and they're like, it's him, that's the one, or it's her, or and they all jump on it and they get frothing at the mouth and they have that mob mentality when it's not even true. And that's why Sisko has that great line saying, hey, I don't remember exactly how he said it, but basically he said, don't do something that you're going to regret an hour from now. He's like, an hour from now, you're going to calm down and you're going to be like, why the hell was I being such a dick?
But in that moment, there was something that really bothered me. It was very a Western-like, the sheriff coming in and calming down the crowd. But then he took the phaser and shot it up, shot up. And I was thinking to myself,
I know.
Wouldn't that have just killed everybody right then and there?
Or shot a hole in a vacuum of space.
Yeah. And then one person flies up and they're getting sucked out into space. But Melissa said she was like, no, because they're set on stun. So it's not going to bust a hole through the wall. Okay. I'm like, maybe. But I think it's kind of funny. Someone said, I don't think you should be shooting phasers like that, sir.
Somebody take the gun away from the commander. Let him make decisions, not shoot stuff.
I thought was interesting was when Odo says, he's not such a nice guy. I watched him deprive a family of the life-saving medicine that would have saved their daughter, and she died. And I'm thinking to myself, why didn't you just pay for it if it was like you watched that happen and you're like, yeah. It's like if you see somebody starving in the street, you're like, I watched a guy starve to death. Well, you could have just gave him a bite of your sandwich or something.
I watched a guy not give a homeless guy money.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then I stepped right over the homeless.
Yeah, and I was like, ooh, this man.
This man is terrible. Don't you see he's going to die? I mean, I was like, why didn't you do something about it if it was that bad?
And, there's something that really bothered me about this episode, too. First of all, the guy that took you and I when we were standing there, he had no idea that I put the Granny Bolites near those people. Nobody saw that except you. And that guy just comes out of nowhere and grabs both of us. I'm like, wait a second. You have zero proof that I did that. Second of all, nothing happened to them. So they turned a couple colors and had a fake itching. But they're fine. Look, they're even smiling. They had fun. Their friends enjoyed it. So why is everybody getting so upset? And
they
just
were embarrassed. They were only smiling because they were embarrassed, you rascals.
But there was only 2 others that saw them turn different colors, okay, pull a Willy Wonka on themselves, okay? And second of all, why was your dad so mad that you shouldn't hang out with me? It's not like I had you steal something. It's not like I brought you to the massage parlor 101A in my uncle's, holosuite. All I did was play a harmless prank. That's what kids do. We're on a freaking space station. What else are we going to do? And I'm very upset.
It's that argument that got us into trouble.
No,
I think you got to plead the
I
fifth
wish I
next
had
time.
a moment with your father to say, why do you hate me? What is it? Is it my lobes are too big? Is that what it is? I feel that wasn't fair. Yeah, he didn't like my lobes. He was a little nervous. They made him nervous, and still 4 years later, he didn't even want to help me get into Starfleet. I had to cry in front of him, basically, for him to go, okay, fine, stop crying.
Well, you overcame.
Yeah, I did.
You turned him around.
Because he couldn't see what my buddy Jake could see in me.
It was like a Mr. Miyagi test for you. He was doing like a Karate Kid thing. He was helping you when you didn't even know you were getting help.
And I have a lot more granny and lights, just saying. But the massage parlor thing is funny because, obviously they're alluding to,
Robert Kraft.
Yeah. Okay. There you go.
No,
Robert
that's
Kraft.
not what they were alluding to.
Maybe Robert Kraft was never mind. But I was thinking to myself, who cleans up after that? Who's in charge of managing?
Rom, that's why he said
that. Rom is, my dad is the cleanup crew for the holosuite. I feel I empathize even more with him today.
You know what I thought was weird too, a little awkward, was the flirtation scene with Bashir and Dax when he's kind of like flirting with her.
Yeah, it's a bit awkward.
It felt like she didn't want the advances, and that's what. Yeah, so it made it feel like almost uncomfortable, especially with today's generation and how you're supposed to interact at the workplace.
At the workplace, exactly.
It felt
at
like
the workplace, yes.
Yeah,
and this is the future.
Right. So it felt like he crossed the line slightly. The way he was talking to her was a little bit inappropriate, in my opinion. Because clearly,
and then Sisko asked her out too. Sisko was like, "You want to have dinner?"
Yeah, but I thought it was like he was saying it in a more like,
oh,
buddy, like, I know you for 100 years type shit. But it wasn't. But with Sid's character, it felt like he was like coming on to her when she didn't want to get come on to. And in today's age, that wouldn't fly. You wouldn't be able to come on as strong as he did after that many rejections.
Well, take that one step further with Bashir and Sisko at Quarks, and Sisko saying, well, if you want to go date her, hey, I'm cool with that. And I'm thinking to myself, really? It's like, isn't there a problem here?
Isn't there protocol? Yeah.
Yeah, isn't there some kind of future protocol about dating each other that are working together? But apparently not in Starfleet. Hey,
backwards.
Make it happen. Basically, hey, if you need the runabout, I'm sure there's some nice places on Bajor that you can take her out to. Hey, I'll reserve it for you, on Saturday.
I thought that was a little bit. It was just slightly. A little bit uncomfortable for me watching, at least for her character's behalf.
I noticed that too. It was a little dated, and that's how it is with anything you watch. Anything that's over 20 years old, you're going to watch through the lens of today, and you're going to go, "Whoa,
yeah,
that's a little weird," or "That's a little inappropriate."
Look at Friends, the TV show Friends.
Absolutely,
that gets a lot of criticism now for the things they did back then.
That was only 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of that. But
yeah.
Especially because they wore giant clothing that didn't fit them.
Here's something else I thought of watching the show that I thought was kind of interesting. When O'Brien gives Keiko a gift for opening her school, and then I thought to myself, gifts. How do we work gifts in Star Trek
when they can get whatever they want?
Yeah, but there's really just a replicator for anything you want, and there really isn't any financial currency with in Starfleet and Federation, right? I'm not missing this for Ferengi, so it'd be really interesting to see how we marry that. And I always wonder, how do we mix civilizations that continue to have that currency and those that don't, and then how do they come together within that paradigm? And I found gifts an interesting thing. We don't ever hear about religious holidays that we are aware of now: Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Ramadan. These different holidays that different religions celebrate. I mean, I'm assuming, now that's an assumption because I haven't watched all of TNG nor DS9, but I'm assuming that these do not come up within these shows, right?
I don't think the specific religions are mentioned, but I know that like theosophy is mentioned, just the concept of God and belief systems are mentioned. But I don't think specifically Christianity or Judaism or Islam is mentioned in a specific
Right.
Star Trek.
Yeah,
But I think,
Go ahead,
think
Ryan.
that our show does the biggest job of intertwining with Bajoran's religion. And
Right. Absolutely.
the belief of the Emissary. I think that's really where they really funnel all their religious concepts through.
But how come, like, so we never mention the religion that we are a part of within our world, and what happened to it? Is there ever mention of what happened to these different religions in Star Trek?
well, because the way, and you're right, both of you are right about this, is that the way, sci-fi usually writes, especially Star Trek, is they use everything's in metaphor. So they're not going to talk about Christianity by mentioning Christianity. They're going to talk about Christianity by showing the Bajorans and how they talk about their prophets. That's the metaphor for Christians or for Jewish people or for Muslims. And then other religions, there's some religions that have been debunked on Star Trek, and there have been some religions where they go, maybe at the end of the episode or whatever. So they do address all those things. They just don't name them in name, and that's why they do it so well. Just like when you've got, like, we're talking about the mob mentality and the mob scene. Like, to me, it was To Kill a Mockingbird all over again. There's Sisko was Atticus Finch, and Odo was the Brock Peters character, who I can't remember his name at the moment. But anyway, so that's what they do, is they use these metaphors to address things, so that way people can detach themselves, so they don't feel like they're being preached to. They're just watching a story that has a similar theme to what.
I think themes are universal, and you're able to talk about different things just by talking about themes. And that's one of the things that I think they do really well on the show. I think also one of the beliefs is that as far as the Federation or the humans or what's happening on Earth, in answer to your question, Aaron, when they talk about, I think it's implied that there is no tension between religions on Earth.
But is there celebration? Or did the celebration stop? Did religion just die out?
There's no mention of it. There's no mention. And I think the only thing that I can perceive being implied is that there's no outlying tensions between religions and these kind of conflicts that you have.
I wonder how we got there then. How did we get there then?
Mankind has been united since 2064, I believe, in First Contact movie, Next Generation movie, First Contact. They pretty much said that there was a third world war, somewhere around like the 2030s or 2040s. Everything's kind of a mess. And then Vulcans come and visit Earth because they saw the first warp drive trails by Zefram Cochrane. And once mankind realizes that there's so much more out there and all these different aliens, as per Picard, he says that unites us in a way we never thought possible. Everybody puts aside their petty differences and realize, hey, we're all just one piece of the greater whole of mankind. Rather than fighting ourselves, we should be fighting these fucking aliens. Well, they don't say that, but.
So what happened to Groundhog Day? That didn't have to do with anything. We could still be looking, to see if winter's going to be longer or shorter.
It's one of the best scripts ever written, I believe, but I don't. I love the movie.
I think there should be a Star Trek episode about Groundhog Day. That's all I have to say.
Oh, well, there are things like Cause and Effect in Next Generation where they do a time loop and they repeat the same.
No. I'm talking about the actual holiday Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
What about Valentine's Day?
They have
But that's
birthdays.
yeah.
These are really good questions. They will all be answered in the new Picard series. So make sure you tune in, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, you stole my joke. You just stole my joke.
Oh, sorry.
And you told it well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That would be funny if Picard was literally Groundhog Day. Just kept a loop. They did it with Harry Mudd, right? In Discovery.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. They did a little Groundhog Day.
So we've got about 10 minutes left, a little bit more. There was something I did want to get into, and we touched upon it a little bit, was, since this show is about the actors of Jake and Nog going over and discussing.
That is the A story, yeah.
I'd like to know a little bit more about that first scene you guys worked together. I know we kind of mentioned it before, but I kind of wanted to walk through it a little bit more, like, when you guys first met each other and like started rehearsing on that set together. I mean, was that the first thing that you shot together? Was that one scene?
I don't know. Was it?
I don't remember the first time though. The first scene. I do remember the feeling of the two of us being on the promenade together. One of my earliest memories, and getting to know each other and starting to really literally laugh and joke as if we were the characters. And this was off screen. So we were laughing, in preparation for the scene, making jokes and really kind of being as mischievous as the characters were supposed to be. Awesome. So I really remember that kind of warm bond with Aaron in the beginning. I don't know. What do you think, Aaron? What do you remember about the first couple of scenes?
I remember, I'll be honest, I think I'm a little bit more self-centered in what I remember, because I remember.
Shocking.
Wow. Why is hate always towards me? There's just so much anger towards me from the two of you. I'm very sensitive.
This is what I'm talking about, right?
No, I remember not wanting to screw up. I remember, don't mess up, trying to find my voice, a walk, and working with you and thinking, this is a great guy. This is a lot of fun. Oh, I hope this will continue. I remember having fun. I actually remember getting behind that couple and dropping the granny and bowl lights down there. And I remember hanging out behind and laughing with you and feeling a good energy. I also remember being given that glop on a stick and not really sure how to handle it because I couldn't really bite into it. And so I don't like having a prop if I can't use it. It just feels like, okay, now it's just a prop instead of it's not.
And for everybody out there, it was like a rubbery gelatin mass, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And he kept trying to grab it from me, and I said, this is my glop on a stick. And I think it's called Jumjaw. I think it's actually was given a name somewhere in the canon of Star Trek. I think it was called something like that, but I remember the script saying glop on a stick. So I've always wanted to open up a glop on a stick next to hot dog on a stick and sell root beer to their lemonade. I think, Jake and Nog's glop on a stick would sell hotcakes. I think it would be great, but
and there's a hot dog somewhere in the middle of there.
Somewhere there's a hot dog somewhere, but yeah, I remember our relationship built each time I would come on the set and get to work with him, and it was really, I think, because both of us were very open to each other. He wasn't like somebody that just decided to just go hide away somewhere and be gone, and then show up and go, yeah, where do I stand? And I've said this many times, and I'll say it again. I really couldn't have been more fortunate to have someone like you as a 14-year-old young man to be my co-star for 7 years and go through you growing up as well as me, right, through my 20s. But I also noticed that and I don't know your family, but your mom was wonderful. She was like she was always there. She was always so kind. And you could see that you have, or at least from my perspective, you have a good home. And you had Avery there, and you were receptive and open to it. You weren't like, yeah, look at me, I'm this big star. Yeah, I'm on a TV show. I'm so cool. You were just humble. You were grounded. And I think because of that strong parenting, it enabled us to really be open and have fun, as you said, and just build that friendship on the set. And that's why I've always said it was just a perfect storm. You know, it was really great. And I think that allowed us to go through 7 years of so much joy and so much fun and such great work together. And not only that, but be here together, you know, and doing this.
Yeah, and I have to add to that. I really enjoy working with you, Aaron. You are really awesome, and you know, very tenacious. And you know, working with a kid, you know, at that time, obviously, I'm a kid compared to you. You know, I didn't feel like you belittled me in any type of way or looked down on me. And that's one thing also that I have to give a lot of credit to Avery as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of adult conversations or interactions. It wasn't like looking down on me like, hey, this is the kid here, and you know, we have to baby him and talk baby goo goo gaga. It was really direct adult conversations, like, you know, hey, this is what we need to do, trying to get this shot done, and you guys will be doing this, this, and this. And it was really, you know, effective for me because it was a learning process, and I was able to learn a lot from Aaron, from Avery, from Armin, because the level of preparation that they do to get to where they are is contagious. And if you see Aaron, for example, preparing and getting his lines right and making sure he nails every mark and having an understanding of the scene, it makes me step my game up because I obviously have to, you know, be on par with that for us to make good work. And I'm not going to sit there and watch him getting ready while I don't know anything about what's going on. It forces me and the other actors to everybody kind of be accountable for what they're bringing to the table. And I think that I couldn't have had a better experience, you know, growing up on the Paramount back lot, being around such talented people and really having like a fun time. I felt like I really felt like I had the least amount of pressure on me. I didn't, you know, the show wasn't really hinging upon my performances. It wasn't, you know, I wasn't the star of the show, and it allowed me a lot of room to just be free and playful and enjoy the moments and you know, build relationships with everybody that I was working with.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that that allowed me a lot of freedom and to kind of do my own thing without having the weight of the burden of, you know, carrying a big show. And I felt like, you know, Avery did a lot of that for us and for me, and made it, you know, made it very easy for me to just do my small part.
Yeah, good. It's just such a wonderful 7 years. It really was. Really was. Yeah.
I'd go back in a heartbeat, Aaron, you know,
Same.
to go back and do season 8 or a movie or whatever.
Well, of course you would, because I died in the first episode. So yeah, nice try. That's fine.
In a heartbeat.
We got to make it happen, even if they can't do season 8, just like a movie. You know, there's always that talk.
A short trek, even. I mean, I'll take anything.
No, let's do a long trek.
You know, I'm going to say this. I thought of this the other day. We should do season 8 as a play. Let's do a Star Trek play. How could we do that? Like a real production. That would be kind of interesting. That would be kind of fun.
You know what I did think of?
You know, as many of the actors as possible that would reprise a role on the stage in a theater sense. That would be kind of interesting and different.
You know what I did think of though, similarly was voiceover. Was just do, you know, like an audio season.
Or like a radio show.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Hey, we've got to cut before this. Someone's going to steal our ideas, Ryan. Send a letter to yourself.
I already copyrighted it.
Okay, good. Okay.
There it is. Good.
All right, good.
I was thinking about Hanahate in there too.
There it is. I remember when we were doing the show, pitching towards the end, pitching the animated show, doing an animated
really?
show. Yeah. And I pitched it to Berman. And I actually had a couple of companies that were willing to invest. But he didn't really want to go for it. He didn't want to do it at the time, which I can respect. You know, it wasn't what he was thinking about. But I was really enthusiastic about continuing to work under the Star Trek brand label, and I wanted to do more. And one of my good friends is an artist, you know, comic book artist, and does animation. So he and I got together and drew out characters and had a storyline for the Star Trek kind of a school, which what everybody had been talking about up until then. So I figured, okay, I'm going to actually bring Starfleet Academy in an animated series to Rick and see if he wants to greenlight it. He wasn't interested at the time.
He wasn't. I think he was like, I'm done. I just want to move on.
I think so. You know, and you know, it's very tricky with the franchise because you know it belongs to CBS, and you can only do so much without their permission. So,
Right.
But you know, I got the opportunity to sit with him and pitch the idea, and that gave me a lot of experience in how to do that. You know, and so you know, I enjoyed the total of it.
You know somebody that did do that.
But the first time we worked together, Aaron, was awesome.
You know somebody that did do that, Cirroc, was somebody that did something similar. Was Anthony Montgomery. You know, but he didn't do a Star Trek thing, but he's doing his own comic series called Miles Away.
Yeah.
So maybe, you know, if you still have that creative bug, maybe that's a direction you can take it. If the, you know, the big wigs at Star Trek aren't interested, then you just create your own IP and then there's no limit. You can just do whatever you want with that.
No, absolutely. And that was the follow-up to it. But, you know, everything becomes complicated when it comes to committing people to a project that doesn't have any funding.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, it's not easy. But, you know, once again, everything is for the experience of it. You know, I got to pitch an episode to Ira and the writers, which they never brought up during the documentary. I think that's one thing they missed.
It's in the bonus features for the
But
DVD.
I did pitch an episode to them, you know, and like while everybody was directing, I wanted to actually be a part of writing an episode.
Hey, we have 30 seconds left, so we got to go. Wow. But give us your elevator pitch. Give us 20 seconds on what that episode was about.
Oh, the real quick breakdown. The A story, or the main storyline, was Quark finding somebody who was selling on the black market these particular drug to put in his drink that gets everybody addicted to their drinks. And he throws a party and gives free drinks. That rouses Odo's suspicion because he doesn't believe Quark would give anything for free. And
Quark.
Exactly. And once he sees that everybody's addicted, you get to see behavioral changes. And I had Dax, for example, turning almost basically prostituting herself so she can get more drinks.
Wow.
Wow. We got to see that.
Yeah.
Everybody's turning
I did that.
Fiends. They're just tweaking out.
Everybody was tweaking out, and Quark was just cashing in because they were literally giving their life savings to get more and more of this stuff.
Okay, we got to go in 5 seconds, but tell us who the hero is. Who's the person that was like, wait a minute, there's something.
Well, Michael Jordan was the hero of that episode, and that was
Michael B. Jordan, I hope.
No, just
or
the
Space
real
Jam.
Michael. The real Michael Jordan was written into that episode, and obviously Ira completely turned it down and said, we can't get Michael Jordan, and this episode won't.
All right, well, we got to run. For Aron Eisenberg, Cirroc Lofton, Michael Jordan, Michael B. Jordan, my name's Ryan T. Husk. Thank you all so much, and as always, remember the 7th rule.